Yeah, that's fine with me. Gary, can you speak up? Should be one right there. That means our batteries are probably low if it's blinking. Hello, hello, hello. You do got to be pretty close to them for them to pick up, like a rock star.
Okay.
Gary's got one.
There you go.
Can you?
There you go.
Okay. I don't have to repeat all that, do I? Comment, emotional support animals, they would still require a beach permit, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Right. So ADA guidelines pertain to service animals. And so service animal is an animal that has been trained to provide a service or do a function for a person. An emotional support animal does not fall into that category automatically, and it actually is not recognized by ADA as a service animal. Okay. Now, federal guidelines and state guidelines have certain ways you can interact with a person that has an animal. All right, so what you can ask them, these are the guidelines we use, is that a service animal? And if they respond, or you can say, is that a service animal as defined by federal and state guidelines? If they respond affirmative, you can then ask what function or what service does the animal perform, and is that animal performing that service right now? All right, and even if they are a service animal, if they are not under control by the owner or out of control from the owner, you can still ask for that animal to be either contained or removed.
That I'm aware of. I guess in relation to the beach.
Okay.
Now that it is trail season.
Yeah.
Are there more restrictions that we can put on, or is it something that, we could sway not to permit that, but I didn't know what.
If it's truly a service animal, they have the right to go wherever the owner has the right to go. If they're an emotional support animal, they don't fall into that protected guidelines or protected entity, and therefore they're subject to any other local entity rules and regulations, local government rules and regulations, and all that. Now, what you will find is that the people that have those types of animals have either been made themselves incorrectly informed that they are a service animal and they're protected, because there's organizations out there, websites, whatever, that will actually sell you the document that says this is an emotional support animal, and they will they actually have training on how to act like it is a service animal and therefore a protected entity. And so, we run into it a lot. Our guys are trained, our people on the beach are trained to ask the right questions and apply the appropriate force, so to speak, to correct the issue. Normally, when people realize that we're in the know of what the actual truth is, they'll back down from their desire to keep that animal on the beach as a service animal. But I'll be glad to send you the documentation we have. We have a couple of small one-pagers that are geared towards you as an enforcement or law enforcement agency, how to interact with the person that has it.
He'll provides basically that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was anything further.
No. Like I said, we encounter it a lot, and usually by the end of the conversation, we have motivated the people to remove their dog off the beach, you know, and but it gets sticky a lot of times. A lot of people, you know, are very attached and are very adamant that their dog is protected.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, a lot of focus on the service animals, on what questions you can and can't ask. One of the things I did when I worked for the Parks and Rec top sale was try to help educate them. If they had a service animal, they want to go down the beach, you know, they were going to go down the beach, but educating them to come out there, areas that they could go, where they shouldn't go, you know, your bird nesting areas, just kind of giving them information that's going to help them. And, you know, what's going on the beach, like, help everybody to coexist, because they can go out there regardless. Here's how you can do it better. It's, instead of, you know, worrying about what I could and couldn't ask and whether or not they could, I wanted to make sure that they didn't do any harm to anything out there.
Good point.
Thank you.
Lee, we went ahead and got started without you.
Thank you. Sorry I was late.
Yeah, no problem.
So are we still in public comment?
We are.
We done. Any other public comments? All right. So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for our last meeting. We have a motion. Second. Any comments? All those in favor? Aye. Motion approved. New business.
We have no new business, so I'd like to emphasize that 2 weeks out, we send out a notice for if anybody, any count or committee members have any items they would like to put on new business, that is the time to do it, so that it can get on the agenda that goes out a week prior to the meeting, and so that any backup materials can also be included, so that y'all as committee members can have time to review it, so you can talk about it effectively, and if any members of the community want to come and participate, they can also have access to the backup material and can effectively communicate when they get here. Of course, we can always introduce new business. At this time, I would encourage you as a committee to not make decisions on new business that's introduced on that day, just for the reason that the public was not aware that that business was going to come up and they didn't have opportunity to talk about it. Certainly could talk about it and then, you know, table it to the next committee meeting date. Just a recommendation you as a committee can do as you see fit.
Thank you, Brian. And since we're on that topic, if I think may not be new business technically, but since we've got some new members on the committee, and as a reminder for current members or old members, I think it might be good to talk about kind of how this committee is intended to function.
Okay.
So do you want to lead that off, or do you want me to put my 2 cents in?
I can start it off. So Destination Improvement Committee, its name is exactly what it is. What we are tasked with doing is improving public space in South Walton. And so public space is of course, our regional and neighborhood beach accesses, the connecting components in between those. So that would be road, multi-use path, you know, other spaces that, you know, are not necessarily in a community, or they may be part of a community, but are, you know, in public right of way. And we also, you know, can encourage other communities to do certain things by, you know, just mere suggestion. But, you know, the stuff that we have, you know, some rights or responsibilities over is the public space. Of course, the beach, we have a sister committee called the Beach Management Committee that mainly deals with, how, policy for the beach, we certainly can be involved in that because policy for the beach can be considered destination improvement items. And so what we do is we bring forth ideas and we vet ideas that are brought to us. And be an advisory committee, we're an advisory committee to the Tourist Development Council, which is an advisory committee to the Board of County Commissioners, who makes all the final decisions on whatever business it is. So, and sometimes, we'll be used to review, vet, confirm ideas that my department might bring forth as a improvement to existing facilities. You as members, I ask you to go out into the public spaces and look and see what you think might be good ideas for improvement. And then we have people like Mr. French with Trees on the Coast that come to us with ideas that would improve public space, and we vet those out. And then they move forward to the next committee level with whichever disposition they leave here from. And so either one carries weight. All right, they can go with an approval for recommendation to the Tourist Development Council, or they can go forward with not a approval or not a recommendation to do it. Because I'll use Alan for example. We may not approve it, but he can certainly carry it to the next level himself, and then they would ask Brian, me as liaison and staff member to TDC, goes to the TDC council meetings. Brian, what was the disposition of the destination improvement? And I would say that. And so either way, it carries weight. So that's what we're tasked with doing. Accurate, or is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you very much. I'll just reiterate, we all should be out there looking for opportunities to bring forth that we think would be improvements to the destination. And certainly if you have someone say something to you, it would be good to get an agenda item, settled when we get the request for agenda items ahead of time, and get that person to come on up here and start the process. A lot of complaining and suggestions happen out there that never make it into any kind of forum where any action can be taken. So we could be a great conduit for helping that to happen.
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to wait for the 2-week out notice. If you see something at any time, send it in to Stacy, and she'll put it on the agenda, and we'll discuss it here. And like I say, if it needs to move forward, it'll move forward. If you want to move forward with, whatever approval it gets, like I say, we're a vetting committee, more or less.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. There's nothing under old business, so soon we can move right through. Well, the capital improvements update, is that part of old business, or is that its own standalone item? Great.
This is a presentation I use at TDC about my garbage collection. Flat, 140 bags a day through January. We were a little bit less than the year before. No real reason for it. February about the same. Once again, this was right at this point where we average our bags by truckload, so we count trucks when they come in. Once again, a little bit closer to year over year for February. Police code enforcement, we had 459 contacts. That's the piles there, the different the status of our contact, the disposition of it. All that's contained in there. I'm not going to bore you with minor details here. You can look through it. February 600. You can see it's a big jump over year. It's because we added more people.
More people on the code side.
Right. This is some of the individual categories that we enforce. So glass, and it's done by month, January, February. The bar graph is the same as the pie. It's just a different way to represent it.
Wow,
Dogs,
glass is the winner.
contacts in January, 358 in February. Half the time they're compliant. Bonfires, 34 in January, 75 in February. That pick up throughout the year. One significant thing about that is the compliance rate. About 90% of the time, bonfires are compliant. That means South Walton Fire District, and the people that are doing fires are good job on, first educating people on how to do a fire, and the people that are doing it right. Even though you trace vendor, not much on that. That means vendors are doing a good job, keeping their stuff off the beach at night and then picking it up. Once again, I look at all these as over the years, last couple of years, we've done a good job of educating and letting people know how they should act responsibly, and they're doing a good job of it. Miscellaneous contacts 10, updates, we're getting our signage changed based on the code revisions we did earlier this year. We had a little bit of a lag because of the customary use thing. When we replaced the verbiage on the sign, we do it as a block of graphic, and the customary use thing is part of that block. Right after we passed the codes, the customary use thing was in play with the House bill and the Senate bill, and it subsequently got passed. We were trying to figure out if we wanted to leave the customary use in place to July 1st, or go ahead and change it now. We made the decision to go ahead and change it now. And this will be in place in the next week or so. All of our beach code enforcement people have received their annual FWS training. 2008 beach vendor permitting, we have 110 permitted vendors, 275 total permits, 190 specific, 85 deliveries. Compared to last year, we had 104 permitted vendors, 272 for the whole year, which was 194 and 78 deliveries. So the first 2 months of the year, we're already past what we did for all of last year. Now, those vendors we get the permits for the first of the year, it's an indication that we have, we'll have close to the same amount of vendors and the same types of permits and amounts of permits. So specific places associated with a resort community or a condominium or a single-family dwelling, delivery vendors are the people that deliver to our public beach accesses, and they can deliver to single-family dwellings and all that. Good question?
I just want to make a quick comment just to raise this up. Oh, sorry. I've never heard this said before or brought up anywhere. It just caught my attention. Lord knows where it came from, but it was the first time I had seen it. I'm used to seeing bonfire remains at the accesses up top that have been dumped. I actually saw a stack of it in my neighborhood. So I live on William Street in Seagrove, so we have a couple beach accesses down there, and it looks like, just so you know, and it could have been a vendor, it could have been private, I hope not unpermitted, but all the way at the end, close to the end of William Street near 30A, they decided to dump their burnt, charred logs, and they actually dumped it on a private vacant lot that was wooded. And I thought, wow, so glad there weren't any burning embers. That so I guess some people might be getting a little creative about where they dispose, and there's nothing we can do about it. It was just the first time I had seen it, and it caught my attention. I was like, wow.
There is something we can do about it, and I've stated this before, that, and you brought up a valid point about things brought to us. Any of us, if that's brought to you, as soon as you can, as soon as practical, contact us at the fire district, or contact Brian, but preferably contact us first, because what we can do is we can at least, we might not be able to pinpoint it, but if we only had, say, 1, maybe 2 bonfires in that general vicinity, we can contact Brian or vice versa, and we can keep our antennas up, basically, to kind of keep an eye. Okay, it was 2 vendors, or it was just an out of town, whatever, but we can kind of keep our antennas up, so if something becomes a trend or whatever, we can take care of it. Or if it's 1, and I'm stating ones that are very obvious, where we've had on the beach, 1 location, 1 bonfire, we've gotten a hold of these guys, and we've basically told them, hey, if you ever want to enjoy another one here, we're going to give you a few hours to go clean that up. And if you don't, it's been nice doing business with you. We're going to blacklist you. So, yeah, just let us know when it happens.
And what we do, we can't identify who it was individually. I call all of them that had a permit there that evening, and I say, hey, this is
Be on
a
the lookout.
experience. I don't know if it's you or not, but be aware that we're aware.
And I probably should have I didn't report it because, quite honestly, I wasn't sure it was a beach bonfire. I mean, it was so far from the beach. I was like, wow, but it probably was, but definitely, huh?
Could have been a warming fire for somebody in the woods.
It could have been, or burning and
So just to clarify, if we find bonfire remains on the beach, should we report it to code enforcement?
Yes.
Okay.
The easiest way is through our online complaint form. And like I said, we have a great relationship with South Lawn Fire District. we know what bonfires are before we go out that night. All of our guys have, a listing of the bonfire permits, and so we roll up on one, pretty much know who it is anyway, and if we have an issue where they didn't clean up properly, we go back to them, and if we can, definitively identify it's them, they'll get a citation. And like I say, permit authority, Southwell Fire District, they have the ability to say, do not get any more permits. And we have started a vendor permit revocation SOP. It's still in its development stage, but that will go a long way to people not, step out of bounds. Right now, there's a very loosely defined permit revocation process, and so it's unusable. But so we've started the process, which probably won't happen this year, but certainly through the code revision at the end of the year, probably get implemented. So yeah, if you see stuff, report it. It's very easy to do. Multi-use path renovation projects, phase 2 of the sections from Watercolor to 283 is moving again. This is from west side of Western Lake to 283. We had issues with easements in the state parks. Looks like there has been a proposal by the state park of what they would like in exchange for a small easement for drainage and grading. The path would be right on the edge on right-of-way. Some portions of it would slightly ease in the state park, and that would be in the first 1,800 feet from 283 going to the east. The rest of the path, once it gets past the telephone pole line, or power line, pole line, would ease back into the right-of-way and then connect onto that path. It looks like, when I say it's getting closer, that doesn't mean we're going to start next week or anything, but it looks like we're probably going to start construction on it after the summer season, and then hopefully have it in service by next month. 283 to 83, we should start paving sometime first of next week, and our goal is to get that thing open before Memorial Day. There will probably still be some slight shoulder work to do on the path and some signage, but if we get back open, we will get away from the issue that created of people trying to drive on the road. The path is on schedule. We had a few rain days they've asked for, and we had a little bit of delay in the front where we had a change order to not use red dirt.
Thank you.
In lieu of the white sands code dirt. It wasn't required, but we did it because we thought it was the right thing to do.
Brian, quick question. Are y'all putting sod on either side of the path once you replace it?
It'd be sodded and seeded in different places. Wooden bridge repair replacement, we're doing those as we do the parts of the path. My 5-year multi-use path replacement project got altered slightly this year as the County Public Works is starting to have design and permit for the 30A road section from 395 east to Western Lake, really onto Camp Creek. And so where I had been going to the west with multi-use path replacement project, I'm now going to change that direction. We had held up on doing that section of path, even though it's the worst, as in deterioration and closeness to the road. It's also the most problematic because of the right-of-way encroachments and because of stormwater issues associated with the road. So now, the Public Works Department will be managing that portion of it. We will be funding the path portion of it, but it will be a streetscape redo as opposed to just a path or just a road. And so we're looking at sidewalks on the opposite side, new 10-foot path on the side that's on. The reason we're also doing that is they got to take the path up and put some stormwater components in underneath the path. And so they got to get back into it.
Brian, I say this not to leave out Scenic Gulf Drive. I think Scenic Gulf Drive is actually in better shape than 30A, so that's why I'm focusing on 30A. As far as destination improvement, I think improving 30A, the road and the right-of-way related, is one of the best things that we can do. And I want to just give a shout out. You guys have been doing great work. The parking, the path work, the bridges, pedestrian. bridges. I know y'all aren't involved with the vehicular bridges. That's a whole nother story that we've been talking about for a long, long, long time. But the pedestrian bridges are beautiful. They look great. Everything you've done, it looks fantastic. So I think one question I have is, for the purposes of our committee's just knowledge, I would love to see the plan, even if it's not funded and approved, but sort of the plan for ongoing future path segments and improvements and bridges, even if it's long-term, just kind of what's the vision out there for getting the whole thing done, because the sections that we are seeing are just such a drastic improvement, not just aesthetically, for a lot of reasons.
We'll get that information from Public Works on what they've done and what their designs include, and we'll either bring with us at the next meeting, or we'll have them come to the next meeting and give a short presentation on it.
So will Public Works be doing some of this going forward, or all of it going
They'll
forward?
be doing, like I say, from 395 to Western Lake and probably on to Camp Creek Lake. They'll be project managing the whole project, and we'll be funding the portion that includes the new bike path, or new multi-use path.
Okay.
So it'll be very similar to how we did the Western Lake Bridge. They actually managed it. We just funded a portion of it. Some of the funding came from DOT, and some of the funding came from Public Works.
And if it would help us and y'all to have them here, that'd be great if they're willing to come chat with us.
We meet with them on a monthly basis. We met with them yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we're talking about a lot of this. And so, yeah, we'll get what they have. At the next meeting, it'll probably be, some not complete set of plans, but definitely, just an overview or a large scale plan of it, and then some cut sections of the streetscape. And that'll give you a good idea of what they're thinking about. And so, in general, it is some right-of-way reclamation in order to get the path off the side of the road and have enough room, because most of the stormwater that's going to be put in will be in the form of exfiltration systems that will be underneath the bike path. And then, of course, the road, appropriate size, and then a sidewalk and possibly some parking in some areas where it can be put in. One of the big things about parking, right-of-way parallel parking, is you have to have a 50-foot triangle for site, and with all the driveway cuts and road cuts so frequent, it's a lot of times hard to get that.
Yeah.
But they're also, I would say, adopting kind of the mechanisms that we have adopted, as in the way to regulate parking is with hardscape and landscape and not signage.
I agree 100%.
It was refreshing in the meeting yesterday we had with them that they expressed that.
Yep.
That they too recognize. One thing they're doing right now, if you notice it, they're replacing the signs along our scenic corridors.
Yeah.
With, instead of the tilted U-shaped poles, with the signage that we have, they now have a nice aluminum, DOT spec poles, signs at the appropriate height, and most importantly, plumb.
Indeed. It's amazing how much better that looks, isn't it? And I would love to see, like I said, even if they're not set in stone, plans for the other segments after that, like what, estimated time frame, order of implementation, so that, because people are starting to wonder now that it's started,
So you're aware of the multi-use path master plan. All right, so they had some color-coded things on there, built, design, out in the future, not design. They haven't really put a timeline to all that. What has spurred along the 30A improvements is stormwater. And so the 30A 395 intersection has a lot of stormwater components within it. It gets stormwater conveyed from that area down to the down the hill, where it's been treated before it falls into the watershed for Western Lake. And so moving on down 38, where Tom Thumb is, there's a big stormwater problem right there. That huge basin, there's even more stormwater issues back in that area, behind all that. And so all that collects and goes different directions. And what we're trying to do is fix all that. 38 never had any stormwater solutions built into it.
Clearly.
They had one time ago, the former swells.
Yeah,
All
but
those have been
that's
filled
done.
in by driveways, houses, people just want to put landscaping and all that. So
Mhm.
that's really what is spurring on these projects. And while they're doing it, they're doing a much needed right-of-way reclamation, encroachment in the right-of-way, and establishing a corridor for vehicles, bikes, pedestrians, and all that on both sides.
Great, thank you.
So, now, as everything, it's dependent on funding. And
Yep.
we have a funding issue, not issue, but there's always a crowd on that funds to it. It looks like that they're identifying funds, and they've got two good engineers, really three good engineers in there now. A couple of them really understand what needs to be done, and I'm sure they are also responding to the outcry from the general public. We got to improve our infrastructure.
Yep, great.
Our TDC projects for our beach accesses, as you know, 2016, 2017, we budgeted for design and permitting, and some construction of what I call facelift of our beach accesses. Those permits are slowly coming in. We've had quite a time with FDP. We actually bid out for these a month and a half ago. Unfortunately, did documents we wanted it done before June, and that really bumped the price up. So we're actually not going to accept the bids. We're going to look it out for rebid and then do these in the fall, late October, and do November, December. We think we can get the price down some. What we heard from the bidders was, hey, y'all 60-day schedule really increased our cost, and we can do it cheaper if we have more. And we did more of the other boardwalks permits in. As we get those in, we'll put them together in lots and get them out. And we're also looking at some ways with Baltimore County purchasing and legal to get better participation in our bidding process. Deer beach access, about 70% complete with design. In fact, we should have those plans in here by Friday. And we'll take those, mark them up, send them back. We'll be back before the BCC with what we call 90% final design approval. And then we'll start the construction RFP process. And we want to start this as soon as we can. Since it's a vacant lot that we're not using right now, it's not going to impact anybody. And our goal is to have it before March 1st. Really, I think I've shown you all the plans before, but it's a nice design. It's got a good boardwalk system on it. U-shaped drive, parking on both sides, golf cart parking, lots of bike parking. The typical beach or bathroom design that we have at Inlet Beach that has a central breezeway. Connects to the bike path. We have it set out by the road. We had a few issues on our design permit on that, but we're moving on again now. Miramar, we are through the conceptual design. We're going to be asking the BCC for acceptance of that. We had several workshops. This project had some particular workshops to it as the BCC asked us to meet with the owners of the Amalfi Coast condo to make sure they were definitely included in it. We've done a couple of workshops with them. This page here is the design that we're going to take to the BCC for conceptual design approval, and then we'll start design development on it. It offers a small island in between the road and the parking area. It's got a nice handicap boardwalk system. We'll tear down the houses there and build an appropriate sized bathhouse. And it also has, there's a pavilion there now that'll actually come down and be built to a square pavilion with a step boardwalk. What we found in some of these workshops is that handicap access is great, but it takes a long time to get down there. We also like opportunity to walk down steps. And so, once again, FDEP offers challenges and trying to go to them. They introduce some new things to us on this one that we've never heard of. Our engineers now sort that out. We can do everything we want to do here. And it'll take, 6 to 8 months for design, development, permitting. And we'll have to pull money out of reserve to fund these to build them next year. So once again, this will probably be under construction. It may get under construction before the first of the year, but may not. We'll know as we go further on. So your Beach, Regional Beach Access, we're having a conceptual design workshop on May 16th at 5 p.m. in this room. Encourage you to come. We'll talk about, we'll offer up 3 conceptual designs. This is the property across from Tom Thumb or Cafe 38. It's got a lot of challenges because it's got that large drainage ditch that bisects it. And it's got a nice slope from east to west. If you're familiar with it, it's pretty nice bluff dune out there that all kind of tapers over to where that drainage basin dumps out onto the beach. It's a creek that comes out on the beach is what it is. And so while we thought that it was a drainage ditch, it actually turns out that it is a creek. And so that's offering some wetlands that are hard to get around. But our engineer has done a great job on our concepts, and we'll unveil those that night and take discussion on those and improvements to those or other ideas we can incorporate. The plan I have here is the survey. And so
Restarting.
okay.
We did. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, that shows the survey of the property as it exists right now. That big ditch is where that creek is going to talk about getting over. But we'll go over it with everything on the culverts, and there'll be a nice parking area, bathhouse, some concept out close to the road, so it has connectivity to the bike path, and a nice boardwalk, handicap boardwalk system down to the beach. Parking projects, we're done with those. I hope everybody's had a chance to see them. We have them at Great Beach, Blue Mountain, Gulf Place, and then Green Mountain. What I have here is a before picture of Blue Mountain, and then an after picture. And it shows tremendous improvement of that area. We're now looking at increasing that parking on up the west side of that road, 38. We have a nice right of way on that road. And like I said, we're looking at it. Jay and I have started the discussion. Can we do it? Can we fund it? And then we'll bring it forward. The next picture is a 393 project looking north. You see we put in the spaces there on the east side of the road. Good improvement to that entrance to the beach or to that inner corridors. And that came out really nice. Mirrors the other side, sort of. The next one is Fort Panic. This is looking west. I wanted to show the landscaping curb and gutters we put in on the north side of the road. We wanted to put parking there, but the site triangles messed us up. As well as that ditch right there. The ditch, as you can see, full of water is actually the drainage for a large drainage basin. Part of it being Lake Allen. To pipe that would have been a lot of money, and we didn't seem cost feasible. The next picture is the parking areas adjacent to our new Regional Beach Access, which is a vacant lot there at the top of the page. And we also have had a workshop to connect that parking to the Fort Panic parking with the same stuff.
On the south side of the
On
road.
the south side of the road. So that's the next 5 plan sheets. You can kind of get an idea what we're talking about. It would be about, well, I think 10 new spaces, and most of those are positioned down close to Fort Panic. We also have a connecting sidewalk that will connect those parks. And start to do that streetscape. What it doesn't show is some of that same gutter, curb and gutter and landscaping on the north side of the road. As you know, there's a strip of grass between the north use path and the road that the restaurant people use as parking. All that will go away and become what I call the barrier, the landscape parcel barrier to keep people from parking where we don't want them to park. And so that whole corridor from the west side of our new Regional Beach Access down to the east side of Fort Panic will be a good example of what 38 can and will look like going forward in the future.
Brian, if I could, while you're in that general vicinity, I know you had a public hearing or a public workshop on parking further east, West Allen Loop, in that area?
We have not had a public workshop on that yet.
Okay.
We're looking at that, Jay and I, and Days of work.
Same kind of concept, parking.
Gotcha. You know, once again, it's not just a parking, it's a beautification and landscape, hardscape area project. And as we move forward with, you know, some more parking solutions in Walton County, they may or may not include metered parking, paid-for parking,
Right.
and all that. And one of the key components of that is that for those paid parking areas to work, you have to prevent people from parking where you do not want them to park.
Right.
The
Well-
other thing is it degrades the right of way.
Yes.
Right. Well, I, for one, I echo the same. I appreciate all the hard work. I know it takes a lot of time and energy to put this together, but I appreciate y'all looking out for the best interest from my perspective. And my representation on this board is public safety, pedestrians, and not only people getting in and out of their cars, but these intersections. And there's some great depictions in here like Golf Place, Blue Mountain, where you pull up with an emergency vehicle. We had the most difficult time at 393 and 38 because a lot of times people were parking right up against, and they still are on that south side of by Ed Walling. I think that'll go away when that condo's done, but they park up against the street signs, delivery trucks and all that. We just can't see, whether a bicyclist, car. So we appreciate you looking out for that.
Brian, two quick questions. Well, one suggestion, just if you can get any live oaks in any of this that you possibly can. I'd love to see it. Do, please. Any of that. It's not a knock, it's just a suggestion. And second, I just need a clarification. You mentioned something back on the Blue Mountain Beach. Did you say you're looking at adding something pathwise?
If you're looking at the Blue Mountain Beach Road there, okay, so, you know, the pictures of stand meet, you know, on a drone above the parking lot, you're looking forward. And so we stopped at about halfway up between Blue Mountain Road and 38. And the right of way on the west side of the road has opportunity to do the same parking all the way up to 38.
Oh, I got you. Extending on the west side up to 38.
Right. The
Got
east
it.
side of Highway 83 doesn't quite have that opportunity. It does, but.
I was wondering about that.
Where?
And
He's talking about extending it up to 38 up here, see how it stops? But he's also, we were also looking at this
Right.
on the east side, so you don't think that's ever potential
I don't
for,
think it will because there's a lot of driveway cuts. I haven't looked at the survey exactly, but it appears the road may not be in the center of the right of way.
Do we know what's going on that southwest parcel that's vacant right now across from the creamery?
We looked at it.
It's for sale, isn't it?
The people wanted too much money for it, we felt, and it also has some challenges with its land use designation.
Okay.
It's
we could
VMU.
not- huh?
isn't it VMU?
I think that's what it was.
I think that's what it says on the sign.
The main prohibition was the cost, and then, from what I understood is, you know, whenever we make it, apparently we may be looking at something, you know, all of a sudden everybody says, oh, you thought,
Yeah.
you know, oh yeah, I took it off the market for a month, and oh yeah, now it's 1.2 million. So that's why, actually, I don't know if it sold or not. I'm sorry, I don't think it did sell. Maybe it did.
They put a new sign up.
They did.
They took Barb's name off of it.
Same ones that complain about spending
We
taxpayers.
looked at it, and it was determined that it wasn't, of course, that was at a time when we were looking at other properties that we had, we really wanted, and we're still doing that. And just for, you know, discussion, we spent almost $27 million on property in the last few years.
Indeed.
So it's good to look, using money wisely, I think, because it's not being cheaper, that's really going to crash.
Well, if we do, you better go to buying. That's what we should have done the last
In
time.
2003, I worked for a developer guy, he said, hey, Kellenberg, you know, now's the time to get a slush fund together. And so when this market crashes, you know, back then, everybody's like, I crashed, man, we're making money flipping. There came. Unfortunately, I wasn't positioned to put together a slush fund.
Yep.
So last item is our beach operations management facility. We got an ongoing deal, design permit, bidding. The first bid came in too high. We reduced the scope, we bid it out, We got it approved and we start construction on it probably next week. Josh moved the plans today. And so we hope to get started on that, and it shouldn't take us too long. Adding about 1,500 square feet of office space, building out one of our bays and making a new public transaction lobby to do our permitting.
Excellent.
And much needed.
Great.
We have
Yay.
44 employees in our office now. And
How many?
44 in my building. Now, a lot of those stay out during the day, but
Yeah.
Go on a Wednesday, they have lunch
we,
on.
I should have got the count of how many special event permits we've done this year. It's a lot. The two ladies we have doing that spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and they've made a big change in special events on the beach.
We're glad you're doing it.
Huh?
We're glad you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you're all realizing what we do with bonfires. We're glad we're doing it, but
Yeah, no,
it's a lot.
My philosophy is that it's easier to stop a problem at the permitting level than with code enforcement.
Right, exactly right.
Absolutely.
That's all we said from the beginning.
We also hired 2 new
Yep.
beach ambassadors. One was to fill a vacant slot, and then got approval from the TDC to use the part-time seasonal hours as I see fit as far as how many employees I wanted and what, part-time hours they want to work. And the reason is it's hard to hire a 40-hour part-time person. If they want to work part-time, they want to work 20 hours. If they want to work 40 hours, they want a full-time position. And so we have 4 new beach ambassadors. 2 of them working 20 hours or 24 hours a week. And one person was working 40-hour part-time seasonal, and we one filled a position. They're actually out on the beach today, getting familiar with all of our amenities and all that. And we'll introduce them next time. So I got on updates. Any
Great.
questions or comments about that? So, one thing I did see on social media recently was a question about our public space guidelines, thing we built, developed, about
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything went through a couple different revisions, so to speak.
The design charrette thing, or?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
guidelines.
yeah,
Yeah.
Public space design guidelines, so, it was in play before Jay got here, and then we lost, marketing guy who was actually kind of spearheading its format. And we had a few revisions to the format that went back and forth, and it actually delayed it, making it to its last approval level, which is the DCC approval level. But I am using it. We are using it for the stuff we're
Good.
doing. I brought it up because it came up on social media recently. What happened to it? What the hell? Everybody asked
No.
where we are, and I talked to Jay. I said, we need to really take it that last step. And so we'll probably do that in June.
That was a lot of work.
That was good work.
And, yeah, it's good, it's not a catalog, it's a theme.
Right.
Guidebook.
And so it really works good. We've already, we've been using it to change out some of our, lesser amenities, garbage cans, benches, stuff like that.
Excellent.
We're certainly using it in our new, RBA, designs, building, the composition of the buildings, the sign we're gonna do, form, it's, lesser amenities and all that. So.
Great.
It's not something that's sitting on a shelf wasting space.
Good. Thank you for that update.
Any more questions or comments?
Nope. So council comments, I'd like to start, typically I would end, but only because, did we introduce our new member
I'm sorry, we
before I
didn't.
got here?
We did not.
Y'all want
Okay.
to introduce Patrick?
Patrick Harsfield is sitting in the seat of the DEP State Park position. We appreciate your participation in our meetings,
Thank you.
and I look forward to, your help and input.
Hey, Patrick.
Thank you, welcome, Patrick.
Thanks. Appreciate
And
it.
Gary, is this your first meeting as our TDC liaison? Were you here? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Got a lot of stuff
Been around,
going
quiet,
on.
been around.
You are quiet. You're quiet today. Very quiet down there. Okay, well, welcome, Patrick. We're glad you're here.
Thank
And
you.
then I'll finish up. We'll go around. Any comments from council?
I just
Nothing
wanted
here.
to reiterate something Gary said about service animals. The state of Florida, the Condominium Act that we are seeing tiny horses and pigs as service area animals, so we're going to see that in our area as well.
Lord have mercy.
I mean, I'm talking
As
about-
service or emotional support?
Actually, you know, the
Emotional support? No,
Dogs
service.
and
Service.
you know, the FDA, I mean,
Service, yes.
Yeah, I have
federal
to
guidelines only
agree with that.
recognize.
We had somebody show up at the campground with a miniature pig.
There you go.
It was their
emotional.
emotional support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
Like
get
say-
the service.
that was back in
I'll see
spring
you
break,
sometime.
yeah.
If you
Well, I'm not
read-
gonna keep interrupting you, but you know, since 2010, and there's a reason I'm saying this, under ADA service animals, they have taken away primates.
They have what?
They have removed monkeys,
Yeah.
primates.
Right now, they only recognize horses and dogs,
That is correct, that's what I'm saying. So,
tiny horses or
Tiny horses.
something horses.
Miniature horses.
Miniature horses, yeah. Tiny.
I mean, we've seen them, so.
So-
we've seen everything.
We need to be
from-
proactive about it.
We've seen everything from ferrets to primates to
I've seen
reptiles.
snakes, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow,
It's
so-
more like an emotional distress.
Yeah, that would not call me a business snake. So one of my dogs just went blind, and I was thinking about getting him a seeing-eye pig. So does that mean I could bring my seeing?
Just keep it on
I mean,
38.
that's fast.
I'm sorry, it just.
Hey, Lee, I would suggest a good pair of running shoes.
Exactly. Keep up the dog.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I don't want to get into a big discussion about this. This is a very targeted question about a very big controversial issue. Is the customary use change that's coming up July 1st, is there a communication plan for getting word out to any changes that may or may not result from those changes, since they happen to just hit right in the middle of the busiest time of our year?
Yes, there is.
And all I want to talk about is the communication. I don't want to get into all the, unless we just really, really want to as a group.
There will be. Of
That's not
course.
my goal.
Right, no, our communications department will craft messages that will communicate what that means as far as the rules or the law change. And it will go out through the normal channels. We will incorporate TV, newspaper, websites, local, our e-newsletter. Walton County's website will also have the same messaging. It'll be crafted in conjunction with their PIO and their legal department and all that. We are already changing the signs. Like I said before, the customary use block of info will be changed with back to the turtle info. And so, yes, we will communicate it as the best we can through the normal channels that we do. Will everybody get it? Most certainly not.
Well,
So
more
we
is
will-
better than less.
Yeah,
if it-
we
if
will
it's
rely
not
on
all.
bed tax collectors to help that. I think we've got a better relationship, communication line from our people in our communications department to our bed tax collectors. We have,
Good.
a lot of new people. In fact, one of them here, Gabby,
Welcome.
takes care of a lot of that for us. And so, yes, we'll do every attempt we can to make everybody aware of what the new rules and regs and how they will affect them. And
Great, thank you.
hope for the best.
Okay, I've been getting a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
So public comment, if that's all council comments. Anybody from the public want to speak? And thank you for being here, by the way, our few supporter members of the public. Come on up, Alan.
I'm out in French with the nonprofit Trees on the Coast. I met most of y'all last month, I believe. Before I talk about what I want to talk about, which is going to be very brief, you were asking for suggestions. So I'm sitting here, my brain is going like this. I noticed that at the Grayton Beach parking project that live oaks were planted. And then when I was looking at the pictures of, say, Blue Mountain, and I'm assuming some of this has to do with telephone overhead power lines, how was the decision made whether to put a sable palm or a live oak tree?
Well, all these projects, we hired engineering firms who hired, landscape architects to do it. And then scenic corridors have, a table of what can be used.
Okay,
And-
I only bring it up, if there's no overhead power lines and you can plant a tree, I think the live oaks,
I agree.
ongoing in the future would really be a more beautiful option. And, you know, in fact, if there's some sables that are in and y'all want some live oaks, that's a ready project for trees on the coast, and we'll donate them if you want. And then the second thing, I was thinking about the power lines. I don't know if it's even in the consciousness of the county. Is there any consideration whatsoever to someday underground power lines along 38?
Well, yes.
I know it's super expensive.
It is, that's the problem, but it has been done, it's been done quite a bit privately, especially the larger planned communities, and some public, like the Seagrove area, a little bit there, but yes, I think it's one of the most important and impactful things that we could do to improve not only the aesthetics, but just a whole lot of other things, from undergrounding the power lines. Vulnerability, yes, and the ability to plant more. It's pretty severely limits what we can plant in our right-of-ways in a lot of places. So, yes, but that's a big funding challenge.
Okay, well, I'm back again, because trees on the coast isn't going away. So just to reiterate that we are ready, willing, and able to donate trees, especially along 38. We just need projects, and our biggest problem, bigger than even fundraising, is getting local governments to allow us to do it. I mean, I just need people in positions of authority like y'all to maybe help grease the skids up the channels. I know it has to be the county commissioners, but I'm starting where I can. I was supposed to speak to TDC last meeting, and they ran into some time constraints, so I didn't get to do my PowerPoint presentation and beg for support up to BCC. So that's what I'm saying again. This meeting is I know, Lee, I can maybe talk to you on the side, and maybe you can help me. But we're doing a big fundraiser Saturday, and y'all are all invited, by the way, if you want more trees in Walton County. It's at Lulu's. Saturday night, it's a pajama party, so feel free to come over. It's free to attend. But we really want to do some projects. We just planted 4 live oaks at the Gulf Cemetery, historic Gulf Cemetery last weekend with a school, Ohana Institute. And that was one of the most rewarding events I've ever been involved with. I mean,
Neat.
the kids loved it. And they were
That's
digging
great.
it.
Mhm.
So it brings the community together. If we can get in the consciousness of the county government that we want to do this, and we want to help, and we want to bring people together. So that's about all I have to say.
Well, Alan, after your presentation at our last meeting, I remember there was some discussion about, I think there was some discussion that you might get with Jay, and because one of the things, especially when dealing with government, I've learned that it tends to go a little better if you have an overall plan, and you start working that plan versus kind of, spearfishing, going after little individual projects. And I think that's what you, if I remember correctly, what you and Jay were going to work on.
We have talked a little bit about the west end of 38, that the stripes in the road where people cut right through them instead of going and staying in the right lane and then getting the 2 left lanes, making that a planting area to redirect traffic, like y'all redirecting parking right now. Kind of our overall dream, trees on the coast, me too, is the Rosemary Beach look, where it's shaded for walkers and bikers, and the road itself is a tunnel of sand live oaks, which will do great, close to the beach like 38 is. So other than hiring a landscape architect, how many mountains is it?
24.
24. That would be super expensive. Maybe I can talk to Jay about that. But you're saying get an overall plan for 30?
Yeah, and I don't mean necessarily specific design for the entire corridor. I'm talking more like what are the areas of priority and kind of getting a plan, longer-term plan for, we want to do this part, these parts first, they're the most need, and then we've got all these areas that have already been handled adequately by private development, but we've got these gaps in between. You see, if you start pulling together an overall plan, and that may be a little outside of the scope of your organization, I understand that, so that would be helpful to work with Jay, or, I'll volunteer myself as a citizen.
Opportunity is the sections from 395 headed east, as it will be a streetscape. And so that's the opportunity to
Yeah.
get appropriate plantings in. Like we talked about last meeting, Land Development Code has some restrictions
Yes.
on what you can do.
Yeah.
But obviously, there are some exemptions or some other parts of the code that preempt or allow trees in the right of way. Obviously, it's, species and size and proximity to the edge of road have a lot to do with it, but I would say that, Alan, let's stay in touch, and as this progresses through design development, that's where an opportunity is for your organization to come in and donate some of the landscaping.
That's another thing that would be a part of that overall plan, is to find out where there are other roadway improvement projects and piggyback on with the landscaping part, part of that.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. If we
So,
can get some projects
I'll talk to you.
and the public sees it, then we can raise more money. They'll be more
Exactly.
likely to join in
Yes.
and want to
When they have
donate.
something to
Or if
see,
we
yeah.
have a specific project that we can do right-of-way tree plantings, we can do a fundraiser to that specific project, so they know what they're gonna get.
Well, I'm happy as a citizen volunteer to sit down with you and talk about it.
But we're a big problem right now, and this was from the engineers when we tried to do a little project out there at the triangle at Seagrove and 38. And he just said, you can't plant any trees in the right of way. And that was the end of the discussion. So I just need the county commissioners or the land planning people, whoever, to make exceptions for us so we can do it. Anyway, I'll keep coming back, and I'll keep going up the chain as much as I can. So
We appreciate it.
Thank
all
you
very
very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other comments, we can adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Appreciate y'all
Do I have to
coming
do
today.
this? It's done.
Turn it off.
Just leave it? Leave it?
I think mine's automatically doing it for you. I think mine's automatically doing it.
I just turn mine off.